I saw a video on YouTube this week and it was titled, "Move to Canada in 5 weeks as a truck driver." So the English leaves a little bit to be desired, but the gist of the thing was, the meaning was that you can immigrate from another country and be driving a truck, earning a living in Canada in 5 weeks' time. And that's just a scary proposition to me. This video is generously sponsored by GP Transco. So I watched the video, and it mentioned in the video that it would be to your benefit if you had driven truck in the country that you were coming from, but it was not a necessity. They would still get you this job in 5 weeks' time. So this literally meant that you could go from being a goat herder in Tibet to coming over here and driving a 140,000-pound set of B trains through the Rockies in 5 weeks' time. A week to travel over and get settled, a week to settle with immigration and find the driving school, 3 weeks to learn to drive the truck, and you'd be off to the races driving in the mountains. Incredible. It's not the immigrants' fault. They all need jobs when they come over here. It's the government's fault. And they'll go to all this expense of taxpayers' money to set up the FMCSA or the National Highway Traffic Safety Association or the National Transportation Safety Association, but they won't do anything about actual safety. And then when there's a truck accident, they'll be stunned and outraged and appalled and do an investigation, and that investigation will cost millions or more taxpayer dollars, but they never really tackle the problem. And they claim they can't understand why the truck accident rate goes up every year, even with all this stuff that they managed to put in, like the ELDs and this type of thing, to control the situation. They can't understand why the accident rates are going up when they don't train the drivers. The ATA petitioned to have no minimum amount of time behind the wheel involved in driver training, and they went for it. Unbelievable. It's completely irresponsible. You cannot learn to drive a truck sitting in a classroom. GP Transco is based out of Illinois, but they hire out of all 48 states. First-year drivers for GP Transco can earn between $80,000 and $95,000. They're W-2 workers, full benefit package. They've got 401k with a match and new equipment. They also hire owner-operators. They're a great place to work. Check them out at gptransco.com. Licensing fraud is also another problem that they haven't addressed. A few years back, I got pulled into the North Platte scale. I was going eastbound on I-80. I was heavy on the spread. They pulled me in, wanted to know why I was heavy back there. I had broccoli on. They'd loaded too much ice on top of the broccoli. It hadn't all melted off quite enough yet, so I was a little bit heavy. The inspector was really good. They always are down there in Nebraska. And he says, well, just hang out for a few minutes, let a little more ice melt off and run out the drain tubes. You'll be good to go. In the meantime, while I was in there, they had a truck pulled in. It had 3 occupants. All of these 3 guys, and they were of another nationality, they all had driver's licenses, and it all had exactly the same information on all 3. The name, the address, everything was identical except the photograph on the license. So all 3 guys had their picture on their own license, but the ID was actually somebody else's. And while I was in there, Nebraska was trying to decide if they were either going to let these guys carry on or throw them in jail or impound the truck. They didn't know what they were going to do, and I got kicked out of there before I had a chance to find out. But license fraud is clearly a problem. Look at a couple of these massive truck accidents. Denver, 4 people killed, 24 injured. Or the Humboldt accident up here, 16 killed, 13 injured. And all the bodies of government just act amazed that they can't believe this truck accidents happen. They are encouraging these accidents to happen by not training these immigrant drivers and turning them loose on the highway. It's as simple as that. The majority of the driving public has no idea how poorly trained the new truck drivers are, and the government really doesn't like to broadcast that. They keep it fairly quiet because they don't want the average driver to know how unqualified these guys in the trucks are these days. They'll act outraged when there's an accident, but really, they don't want anyone to know about how poorly trained they are. Meanwhile, it's the government issuing these guys their license in the first place. Now, the reason they're set up this way is the mega carriers and the government both feel that it's cheaper to bring in immigrant drivers, train them just the bare minimum, and kick them out on the highway. But they fail to calculate the human cost involved in this. And if they calculated out the true math and these figures and what the human cost and suffering is, they'd be far cheaper to spend that money training drivers properly and not releasing them out onto the highway until they knew exactly what they were doing. 3 weeks is nowhere even near close to the amount of training that they need. The whole system is broken. It's a mess. The government is responsible for this mess, and they need to fix it. Stay safe. If you're a new driver coming into this industry, realize that the training you receive in driver training school, the 3 weeks or whatever it is, isn't nearly enough. That training merely gets you the license, but that doesn't qualify you as a safe driver. You need to be careful. It takes years to master one of these things. Keep the rubber side down, and I'll see you on the backhaul.